We wanted to take a moment to note the passing of Don Cornelius, the creator of Soul Train. He died today in Los Angeles at 75, an apparent suicide.
During the late 1960s, television didn't reflect the real world that so many people lived in. Black culture, its music, its dances, its fashion, was everywhere in the streets, in the clubs, in the neighborhoods. But on TV, it was almost invisible. That began to change when a young man from Chicago, Don Cornelius, came forward with a new idea. He wasn't a star. He wasn't wealthy. He was just a former policeman with a dream that there could be a show made for Black audiences by Black creators that would celebrate soul music and showcase the energy of the community. That dream became Soul Train. From the moment it first hit the airwaves in 1970, it was something completely different. The music was electric. The dancers were stylish, confident, and free. For the first time, millions of viewers could see themselves, their culture, and their pride broadcast across the nation. And for over 3 decades, Soul Train wasn't just a show, it was a movement. Don Cornelius was born in 1936 in the city of Chicago. His childhood unfolded during a time when America was sharply divided by race. Black communities and white communities lived separately, often under harsh and unfair laws. Yet, from the very beginning, Don stood out, not because he had power or wealth, but because he carried vision. Before television fame, Cornelius lived an ordinary life. He worked as a traffic policeman, guided cars through busy Chicago intersections, and even sold products door to door. These were jobs to pay the bills, not to define a lifetime. But inside, he carried a bigger dream. In 1966, Don took his first step toward that dream. He enrolled in broadcasting school, learning the craft of radio and television. That same year, he earned a spot as a news reporter at a Chicago TV station. Reporting gave him a taste of the media world, but he wanted something more. What Don saw around him was a glaring absence. Black voices and Black culture were missing from mainstream television. There were plenty of shows for white America, but nothing that captured the energy, music, and style that pulsed through Black communities. Don decided he would change that. He dreamed of a music and dance show, a program that wasn't just entertainment, but a celebration of identity. That idea became Soul Train. On August 17, 1970, Soul Train aired its very first episode in Chicago. It was simple at first: local artists, live performances, and dancers from the neighborhood. But almost immediately, it struck a chord. The energy was infectious. People saw themselves reflected on television in a way they never had before. By October 2nd, 1971, just over a year later, Soul Train went national. Backed by sponsors like Sears and Johnson Products, the show quickly spread across America. With music, fashion, and dance, it was unlike anything else on TV. And week after week, the train kept moving forward. In the years that followed, Soul Train exploded into a cultural phenomenon. The guest list read like a hall of fame in music. James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye, Michael Jackson, and the Jackson 5 all graced its stage. Later, hip-hop and R&B stars like LL Cool J and Mary J. Blige would also perform. But Soul Train wasn't just about the musicians, it was about the dancers. The show gave young, unknown talents a national spotlight. Rosie Perez, Jody Watley, and Jeffrey Daniel all started as Soul Train dancers before making their names in music, choreography, and film. It was Jeffrey Daniel, in fact, who taught Michael Jackson the moonwalk, a move that would change pop culture forever. Then there was the famous Soul Train line. 2 rows of dancers facing each other, with one person at a time strutting down the middle, showing off their most creative moves. It wasn't just a performance, it was a celebration of individuality, confidence, and joy. Viewers at home tuned in not just to see stars perform, but to feel that energy. For Black America, Soul Train was more than a TV show. It was representation. It was pride. Every Saturday, families gathered to watch their culture celebrated on a national stage. For over 3 decades, it became a ritual, a space where music and style shaped the nation. At its peak in the late 1970s and early 1980s, millions of people tuned in each week. The show's influence stretched beyond television. There were Soul Train fashion shows, award ceremonies, and branded merchandise. Don Cornelius himself became one of the most important figures in Black entertainment. In 1971, Life magazine even named him one of the 100 most important people in America. For a time, it seemed Soul Train would never slow down. But with success came new challenges. Don Cornelius was not only the host of Soul Train, he was its architect, its director, its authority. Every detail, what music was played, what the dancers wore, how the show looked, ran through him. His calm, serious style set Soul Train apart from the flashy chaos of other music programs. But with control came criticism. Former dancer Rosie Perez remembered being told to change her moves because Don felt they didn't fit the show's image. Many dancers also revealed they weren't paid at all. They believed the exposure on national television was reward enough, but years later, some felt exploited. The show profited, while the dancers, the heartbeat of Soul Train, received nothing. Then came hip-hop. By the late 1980s, rap music was exploding in popularity. But Don Cornelius didn't like it. He believed it promoted violence and negativity. And in 1992, he stated that his show would not feature music that lacked positivity. This decision created tension, as shows like Yo, MTV Raps, and BET's Rap City embraced the new wave. Soul Train started to feel outdated. Tupac, Nas, Snoop Dogg, artists defining a generation, were almost never seen on Soul Train. Young viewers drifted elsewhere, and ratings began to fall. By the early 2000s, viewership had dropped from millions to barely 2 million a week. TV stations pushed Soul Train into weaker time slots or replaced it with newer shows. The once unstoppable train was slowing down. In 1993, Don Cornelius stepped away as host. After 23 years, he passed the microphone to new faces like Shamar Moore, Maestro Clark, and Dorian Gregory. They tried, but none could capture the unique authority and presence Don brought. The magic faded. Producers tried to modernize the show. New sets, new hosts, more hip-hop artists, but nothing worked. Compared to newer programs, Soul Train looked tired. Between 2003 and 2006, episodes became fewer each season. The budget was shrinking. Crew members left. Advertisers questioned whether the show was still worth their money. Don Cornelius himself withdrew from public life, rarely appearing at events or giving interviews. By 2006, the once vibrant Soul Train was a shadow of itself. But its true end came not with an announcement, but with one disastrous day of filming. In March 2006, production began on what should have been just another episode of Soul Train. But from the beginning, something felt wrong. The crew had been shuffled at the last minute. The guest list was disorganized. People backstage seemed confused. Though Don Cornelius was no longer officially running the show, several witnesses say he was present that day, quietly observing. He didn't like what he saw. The featured act was a young hip-hop artist, but production quickly spiraled into chaos. Arguments broke out between managers and the TV crew. Performances were delayed nearly an hour. And when the artist finally went on, the act shocked everyone. The costumes were too revealing, the choreography too provocative. It was a performance far removed from the family-friendly image Don Cornelius had spent decades protecting. At one point, Don reportedly stormed in, ordered the cameras stopped, and demanded an emergency meeting. Shortly after, Tribune Entertainment, the company responsible for distributing Soul Train nationwide, pulled its support. Within weeks, nearly half the local TV stations dropped the show. There was no farewell episode, no closing statement. Production was quietly canceled. And the episode filmed that day, the one some staff members still call the cursed performance, was never aired. That taping marked the unofficial end of Soul Train. After the cancellation, Don Cornelius disappeared from public view. In 2007, he made a rare radio appearance, saying only, "I think it went far enough." Beyond that, silence. Meanwhile, former dancers and hosts expressed sadness. Rosie Perez called it an unnamed grief. Dorian Gregory admitted even the cast wasn't told the truth. They simply saw the filming schedule vanish. Investigations later revealed the problem wasn't just low ratings, it was mistrust and internal collapse. Without Don's leadership, the show lost its identity. The Soul Train Awards survived, eventually handed over to BET in 2009. But the ceremonies felt different, separated from the soul of the original show. Fans mourned not just the loss of a program, but the end of an era. Tragedy deepened in 2012, when Don Cornelius died by suicide in Los Angeles. The man who had once given joy to millions had left the stage in silence. And yet, Soul Train refused to fade completely. Clips resurfaced on YouTube, racking up millions of views. A new generation, too young to have seen the show live, discovered its magic online. The dances, the fashion, the music, it all felt timeless. By 2019, BET released American Soul, a dramatized series about Don Cornelius and the early days of the show. Museums began preserving Soul Train artifacts, recognizing its cultural importance. The Smithsonian itself holds costumes and memorabilia as treasures of American history. On social media, the Soul Train Challenge went viral in 2021, proving that even decades later, its influence lives on. Still, one mystery remains: the final, unaired episode. Though some footage exists in private hands, it has never been released. Legal issues, creative disputes, and the shame of that day keep it locked away. Perhaps it will never surface, but in truth, Soul Train never needed a final episode to cement its legacy. What Don Cornelius built was more than a show. It was a cultural statement, a declaration that Black music, Black dance, and Black identity belonged at the center of American television. The silence of 2006 could not erase that. If anything, it transformed Soul Train into something greater. Not just a program, but an icon. And maybe, just maybe, that missing episode is what makes the story unforgettable. Because sometimes, what never aired is what history remembers most.